Christmas Eve is supposed to be a time of joy, laughter, and togetherness. A night filled with the magic of twinkling lights, the scent of pine, and the comforting embrace of family. Children eagerly await presents under the tree. Adults reminisce about old memories. And for just one night, the world feels at peace. But for the Anderson family in Carnation, the night of December 24th, 2007, would be anything but peaceful. What should have been a cozy holiday gathering, a night of love and tradition, turned into something out of a horror movie. By the time the night was over, 3 generations of one family lay dead, brutally executed in their own home. The warmth of Christmas was replaced with cold-blooded murder, and the laughter that once filled the air was silenced forever. And at the center of it all was someone no one would have ever suspected. This is the shocking true story of Michele Anderson, the woman who betrayed her own blood, turning what should have been a festive night into one of the most gruesome family massacres in American history. What could drive someone to commit such an unthinkable act? What festering darkness lurked beneath the surface, turning a daughter into a killer? Was it greed, resentment, or something even more sinister? Stay with me as we uncover the chilling details of the Carnation massacre. The Andersons were the kind of family you'd expect to see on a Christmas card. Smiling faces, a warm home filled with love, and generations gathered under one roof. Wayne and Judy Anderson had spent over 3 decades in their cozy home in Carnation, Washington. They were the kind of parents who worked hard, provided for their children, and believed in family above all else. Their son, Scott, had built a life of his own with his wife, Erica, and their 2 young children, Olivia and Nathan. 2 innocent kids who still believed in Santa Claus and the magic of Christmas. It was the picture of a perfect all-American family. And then there was Michele Anderson, the youngest daughter. On the surface, she seemed like any other woman in her late 20s. But beneath that exterior, resentment had been festering for years. A silent, growing bitterness that no one had truly noticed or taken seriously. Michele and her boyfriend, Joseph McEnroe, had been living on her parents' property, just a short distance from the main house, rent-free. Wayne and Judy had allowed them to stay without asking for much in return, but as time went on, their patience began to wear thin. Recently, Wayne and Judy had told Michele that it was time to start pulling her weight. She and Joseph needed to start contributing financially. After all, they were adults, and life wasn't free. To most people, this would seem like a reasonable request. But to Michele, it was something far worse. It was a betrayal. Michele had convinced herself that her parents always favored her brother, Scott. She claimed he had borrowed $40,000 over the years and never paid a cent back. Yet, here she was, being asked to pay her way, while Scott got away with everything. It wasn't fair. At least, that's how she saw it. The bitterness she had carried for years finally boiled over. And instead of handling her anger like an adult, she made a decision that was both chilling and irreversible. She wasn't just going to get even, she was going to wipe them out. What started as resentment would soon turn into one of the most horrific family massacres in American history, and no one saw it coming. The afternoon sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden glow over the quiet town of Carnation, Washington. It was December 24th, 2007, Christmas Eve. A nightmare for family and celebration. As Michele Anderson and her boyfriend, Joseph McEnroe, drove up the long wooded driveway to her parents' house, snowflakes drifted lazily from the sky, blanketing the landscape in a soft layer of white. Inside the house, the scent of roasted turkey and fresh-baked cookies filled the air. The warm glow of Christmas lights flickered against the windows, reflecting a picture-perfect holiday scene. But behind the walls of that cozy home, darkness was about to descend. The couple stepped inside, shaking off the cold, their breath still visible in the winter air. Judy Anderson, Michele's mother, greeted them with a smile, completely unaware that her daughter wasn't there to celebrate Christmas. She was there to end it. McEnroe distracted Judy in a back room, making small talk, keeping her occupied. Meanwhile, Michele turned to face her father, Wayne Anderson, in the living room. And then, without a moment's hesitation, she pulled out a handgun and fired. The gunshot shattered the peaceful silence, echoing through the house. The bullet tore into Wayne's body, sending him crashing to the floor. Blood seeped into the carpet as he gasped for breath, his mind struggling to comprehend what had just happened. His own daughter, the little girl he had raised, the one he had once cradled in his arms, had just shot him. The noise sent Judy rushing into the room. Her eyes widened in horror as she took in the scene, her husband bleeding out on the floor, her daughter standing over him with a gun. Before she could scream, McEnroe stepped forward. He raised his own gun and fired point-blank into Judy's head. She crumpled instantly, the life draining from her before her body even hit the ground. But Wayne was still alive. He was choking on his own blood, his chest rising and falling in short, ragged breaths. His vision blurred, his ears ringing from the gunshots. He tried to speak, maybe to plead, maybe just to understand why his own daughter was doing this. But Michele wasn't interested in answers. She raised the gun again. Bang! A second shot ended her father's life. The house, once filled with holiday cheer, now reeked of gunpowder and death. Blood soaked into the festive decorations, staining the holiday that was supposed to bring them all together. But Michele and McEnroe weren't done yet. They dragged the lifeless bodies outside, the snow crunching beneath their boots as they hauled them toward the shed. Once inside, they dumped them unceremoniously onto the cold ground. There was no hesitation, no remorse. Then they returned to the house, cleaning up the blood, wiping away the evidence, trying to erase the horror of what they had just done. But their night of terror was far from over, because soon the rest of the family would arrive, and Michele had no intention of letting them leave alive. The house was silent again, except for the faint crackling of the fireplace and the rhythmic ticking of a wall clock. The smell of blood had begun to mix with the festive sense of Christmas dinner, creating a sickening contrast. And then, headlights. A short time later, Scott Anderson pulled up in his truck, completely unaware of the carnage that awaited him. Beside him was his wife, Erica, their 2 young children, 5-year-old Olivia and 3-year-old Nathan, bundled up in their winter coats, their little faces glowing with excitement. To them, this was just another Christmas Eve, another night of love, laughter, and presents under the tree. They had no idea that inside the house, death was waiting for them. Scott stepped through the front door first, carrying an armful of gifts. He barely had time to register the eerie stillness before McEnroe raised his gun and fired. The first shot tore through Scott's chest. He stumbled, crashing into the holiday decorations, smearing his own blood across the walls as he collapsed onto the floor. Erica let out a horrified scream, instinctively reaching for her phone. Her fingers fumbled as she dialed 911, her breath coming in frantic gasps. The dispatcher's voice crackled to life. 911, what's your emergency? But before Erica could say a word, bang! A second shot. The phone slipped from her grasp. The line went dead. She fell to her knees, blood pooling beneath her. But she wasn't gone yet. Her voice, weak but desperate, trembled through the room. Not the kids. No. Her final plea. Her dying breath. McEnroe and Michele turned to face Olivia and Nathan, 2 wide-eyed children frozen in terror, their tiny hands clutching each other. For a moment, McEnroe hesitated. Even he, a cold-blooded killer, struggled with the thought of murdering 2 innocent kids. His hands shook, his eyes welled up, but Michele was unmoved. She reminded him, coldly and without emotion, that if they left witnesses, those children would grow up seeking justice. There could be no survivors. McEnroe wiped his eyes, took a deep breath, and pulled the trigger. One shot, then another, and just like that, the Anderson family was no more. For 2 days, the Andersons' home sat eerily silent. No phone calls, no visitors, just a house filled with the ghosts of a massacre. The Christmas decorations still twinkled in the windows, untouched. Wrapped presents sat beneath the tree, waiting for a family that would never open them. The world outside continued as if nothing had happened, unaware that inside that house, 3 generations had been slaughtered. Then, on December 26th, concern began to grow. Judy Anderson's co-worker at the Carnation post office noticed her absence. It wasn't like Judy to miss work without calling. Something felt wrong, so she decided to check in. Driving to the Anderson home, the house stood still, almost too still. The snow-covered driveway had no signs of movement, but as she approached the front door, she noticed something chilling. It was unlocked. Cautiously, she stepped inside, and then the smell hit her. The overwhelming, suffocating stench of death. She didn't need to see what was inside. She already knew something was horribly, horribly wrong. She ran back outside and called 911. When King County Sheriff's deputies arrived, they stepped into a scene from a nightmare. Blood stained the floors. Bullet holes pockmarked the walls. The air was heavy with the metallic scent of gunpowder and decay. And scattered throughout the house were the bodies of 6 people. A family once full of life, now reduced to nothing but victims of cold-blooded murder. It was a Christmas Eve massacre, one of the worst family murders in Washington state history. As crime scene investigators worked through the horror, dusting for prints, collecting evidence, and documenting the unimaginable, headlights appeared in the distance. A car slowly made its way up the long driveway. Behind the wheel was Michele Anderson. Beside her sat Joseph McEnroe. They acted surprised when they saw the police swarming the house. They feigned confusion when officers approached them. McEnroe told them they had been on their way to Las Vegas to get married, but had gotten lost and decided to turn back. But something was off. They didn't ask what had happened. They didn't seem concerned about their family. No panic, no fear, just an eerie, forced calm. The police weren't buying it. For hours, detectives pressed them for answers, and eventually the mask cracked. Michele Anderson broke down, and then, with chilling detachment, she told them everything. She admitted she had been planning the murders for 2 weeks. She said she was tired of everybody stepping on her, that she had felt used. She blamed her brother Scott for borrowing money and never repaying it. She resented her parents for always taking his side, and in her twisted mind, wiping them out had seemed like the only solution. No guilt, no remorse, just cold, calculated revenge. And now, there was no turning back. Justice was slow. Despite Michele Anderson's confession, legal battles, delays, and a tangled court system stretched the case out for 8 years. Prosecutors initially sought the death penalty, believing the sheer brutality of the crime warranted the harshest punishment. But after multiple juries in similar cases refused to impose it, they removed it from consideration. Instead, in April 2016, Michele Anderson received her fate: life in prison, no possibility of parole, no second chances. There would be no redemption, no freedom, just a lifetime to sit behind bars and think about the family she destroyed. In the courtroom, Judge Jeffrey Ramsdell wasted no words on Michele. He turned to the surviving relatives instead. The people left picking up the pieces after the unthinkable. He praised their strength and told them that while nothing could ever bring back their loved ones, at least the nightmare was nearing its end. But for Pam Mantle, the mother of Erica Anderson, closure was impossible. She had lost a daughter, a son-in-law, and 2 beautiful grandchildren. And now, standing in the same room as their killer, she refused to hold back. She locked eyes with Michele and said, "I don't think you're big and tough, Michele. I think you're a bully and a coward. I am brokenhearted. Every day, I miss those 6 people." Her words cut through the air like a blade. And then, perhaps the most heartbreaking moment of all. Mary Victoria Anderson, Michele's own sister, the woman who had grown up alongside her, the woman who had barely escaped the massacre simply because she had been too sick to attend, stood up. Through tears, she looked at the sister she once loved, the sister who had become a murderer, and said, "It kills me. I loved you so much. Just know, they loved you." The weight of it all hung in the air, suffocating the room. Michele sat motionless, her head slightly bowed, tears slipping down her face. But was it guilt, regret, or simply the cold realization that she had lost everything? Whatever it was, it no longer mattered, because the family she had resented, the people she had killed in an act of rage, would never be forgotten. And she would spend the rest of her life behind bars, forever haunted by the ghosts of Christmas Eve. While Michele Anderson admitted to planning the massacre, Joseph McEnroe was just as responsible. He pulled the trigger, he helped clean up the crime scene, and he showed no mercy, even when it came to the children. His trial began in January 2015, nearly 8 years after the murders. Unlike Michele, prosecutors pushed hard for the death penalty, believing his role in the killings warranted the harshest punishment possible. McEnroe tried to avoid execution, breaking down in court, apologizing, and claiming he was manipulated by Michele. He insisted he had been weak and too afraid to stand up to her. But the jury didn't buy it. In March 2015, McEnroe was convicted of 6 counts of first-degree murder. A month later, the jury deliberated his fate. And on May 13, 2015, the decision came down. Joseph McEnroe was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Despite the prosecution's efforts, the jury spared him from the death penalty. Some jurors later admitted they believed he had been under Michele's influence, while others were simply unwilling to impose execution. But his fate was sealed. Like Michele, McEnroe would never walk free again. For the rest of their lives, they would sit in separate prison cells, reliving the horrific night of December 24, 2007, the night they wiped out an entire family for nothing. And while the Anderson family would never get their loved ones back, at least justice had finally been served. The Carnation Massacre wasn't just a tragedy. It was a catastrophe that rippled far beyond the Anderson family. A small, tight-knit community was left in shock and grief, struggling to comprehend how something so monstrous could happen in their peaceful town. Friends, neighbors, and co-workers who had once laughed and shared moments with the victims now carried the weight of their absence. And for the surviving relatives, the loss was beyond words. But the damage didn't stop there. Bringing Michele Anderson and Joseph McEnroe to justice came at an enormous cost. The prosecution spent nearly $1.7 million to convict them, while their defense drained over $10 million from King County's budget, making it one of the most expensive murder cases in Washington state history. And for what? A petty grudge, jealousy, resentment. The price of their hatred wasn't just financial. It was the complete destruction of a family. After the massacre, Anderson and McEnroe tried to erase the evidence. The 2 handguns used to slaughter 6 innocent people were later found at the bottom of the Stillaguamish River, where they had tossed them in a desperate attempt to cover their tracks. But no amount of evidence, confessions, or courtroom trials could ever truly explain it. How does someone become capable of such an unspeakable betrayal? As this dark chapter comes to a close, one haunting question remains. Could it have been prevented? The Andersons weren't strangers to their killers. They were their own blood. They had welcomed Michele and McEnroe into their home, given them a place to live, tried to help them. They had treated them with kindness and generosity. And in return, they were slaughtered. Michele Anderson didn't just end lives that night. She erased a family, a legacy, a lifetime of memories. A Christmas Eve that should have been filled with laughter and warmth was instead drenched in blood and terror. And now, for the rest of her miserable life, Michele Anderson will have nothing but time. Time to sit in a cold prison cell. Time to remember the family she destroyed. Time to wonder if the grudge that fueled her rage was worth it. But the truth is, she'll never have an answer. Because nothing could ever justify the monstrosity of what she did. She will remain locked away, forever alone. The Carnation Massacre is a chilling reminder that sometimes the greatest horrors don't come from strangers, but from the people we trust the most. What do you think? Could anything have stopped this from happening? Let us know in the comments. And if you found this story shocking, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, so you never miss another true crime story. Because in the world of true crime, the darkest tales are often the ones closest to home.